I thought it would be a great way to start the show by talking about The Witcher, guys. We've talked about The Witcher on a number of occasions on the YouTube channel up to this point, and I wanted to talk about The Witcher 4, which is pretty much what we've been primarily talking about because The Witcher 3, of course, Wild Hunt has been out for, a number of years now. I mean, this is a series, guys, that has spanned since essentially 2007 and has gone to really this very day. I mean, if you take into consideration, of course, The Witcher Netflix show that's been going on. But if you look at the games, we're looking at from 2007 all the way to 2015, we've had The Witcher games, and 3 in total at this point. And at this point, guys, of course, with each game, you kind of get some expansions and some continuations of the franchise, which is awesome. Keeps you coming back to the game, which is really important. But what I wanted to talk about in this segment was why The Witcher 4 should exist. And this should be a game that should come out at some point in the future. So let's talk about it. So guys, obviously we know that CD Projekt Red are the creators of the Witcher franchise as far as in video game format. And so what I think it is really important when we're talking about games that should exist or continuations of franchises, The Witcher is one of those that definitely deserves to see a continuation for a number of reasons. I think if you say that, the first 3 games, it was meant to be a trilogy, and now CD Projekt Red has moved on to Cyberpunk 2077, which is, of course, the next game that CD Projekt Red is coming out with. Here's the thing, guys. The Witcher is a franchise, not only that I believe it deserves to continue, because not only a lot of people out there are now getting more acclimated and familiarized with The Witcher from the TV series on Netflix. There's a lot of people out there, guys, that aren't necessarily gamers, right? And if you are a gamer, some people haven't played The Witcher. Of course, they might have heard of it, but after watching the Netflix show, they might think to themselves, I'm going to give this a try and play, the first 3 Witcher games. And what I'll tell you is that I believe actually the Netflix series, The Witcher, I think that has actually really created this opportunity for continuations of the Witcher franchise. I mean, you could say, like I said, the first 3 games were a trilogy and that Geralt's, story is over. You could, of course, say that. But at the same time, I think there's still a lot, more to be told in the Witcher universe. In the grand scope of things, whether the main characters are no longer there or they're there, but they're side characters, they're not necessarily, the playable characters. And, of course, the torch is passed on. Think of Gears of War, guys. You had a number of games. You had 3 Gears of War games where, the main character that you played as was Marcus Phoenix. And then, of course, you had Gears of War Judgment, which, kind of was somewhat of a, kind of a change of direction in the franchise, which I thought was probably the worst of the franchise. But you don't play, of course, as Marcus. You play as Baird. And then, of course, you had the changing of the guard, so to speak, between Epic Games to the Coalition that was created and formed by Microsoft. And then, of course, what ended up happening from there is pretty much history, guys. You had the Gears of War Ultimate Edition that came out, and then, of course, Gears 4, which is where, of course, Marcus pretty much passes the torch onto his son, JD, and then JD from Gears 4 to Gears 5 is passing the torch to Kate Diaz. And so what I'm getting at here, guys, is that maybe they just passed the torch on to someone else, a new character. The beautiful thing about the Gears of War franchise, and, just to kind of compare here, is that JD was the main character in Gears of War 4, but Marcus was still there. He was just a side character in the story, and he was older, of course, right? So you could do similar things in The Witcher, I believe, that being CD Projekt Red. So, number 1, why should it exist? That being The Witcher 4. Well, I'll tell you guys, number 1, if we want to talk about just anything, right off the top of our heads, we would certainly say just the legacy. We want to continue playing The Witcher games because there's something special. The Witcher Wild Hunt, guys, was, of course, pretty much, I mean, not only did it win so many awards, but it had such a immersive story and the immense amounts of landscapes and just everything that you could explore with this open world. it definitely gives you that feeling like, man, I can't wait to see where they go with this. Because if you think about it, of course, on the Xbox Series X and the PS5 that's going to be launching later this year, The Witcher 4 could definitely use with some updated graphics, even though the graphics have been really up to this point very up to standard. But if they could continue that moving forward, that'd be one reason to definitely want to play it, just for the immersion as well as the story. Who knows where it goes, guys? And look, the way I see it is if they make it a prequel to the other Witcher games, or they go in the future a little bit, whatever the case might be, I think that CD Projekt Red, this is a franchise that deserves to continue. And what we've heard from CD Projekt Red is that there's definitely consideration of continuing it after Cyberpunk 2077, which, by the way, guys, Cyberpunk 2077 definitely looks like a very immersive and exciting story, to say the least. And I know a lot of us are really anticipating it. I know it's probably one of the most anticipated games of the year, probably up there with like The Last of Us Part 2. And so I think, guys, can we expect this game to come out? We've talked about that in the past, and I think that the answer is yes. I think that we can expect it most likely at some point after Cyberpunk 2077. But at the end of the day, guys, it really comes down to CD Projekt Red and are they going to want to, continue this franchise because they own, the rights and such? Are they going to want to continue this story in one way or shape or form? Or do they just want to make Cyberpunk 2077 and make a trilogy out of that and kind of change things up a little bit? Obviously, we see a lot of developers out there that are able to work on multiple projects. Maybe CD Projekt Red doesn't necessarily want to do that. They want to just focus on one game at a time. And right now it's Cyberpunk, and then maybe after that it'll be another Cyberpunk, or maybe, who knows where it could go. But I think that, guys, at the end of the day, The Witcher deserves to exist not only as a legacy to gaming, because this is a game that, of course, like I said, is spanned since 2007 as far as one of the greatest, role-playing games in the, as far as in the action genre. And I think it's really important that this franchise continues in some capacity or another, and I believe that it will. And if CD Projekt Red decides that they don't want to make Witcher games anymore for whatever reason, they could, of course, sell the IP for a pretty big price, and then who knows what companies would maybe jump on that opportunity. But at the end of the day, I think that CD Projekt Red is probably the best to, keep the rights at this point and make another game. And look, I've said this many times, guys. When it comes to movies, it's usually good if there's a series of movies that comes out. Let's just say, for example, like the Harry Potter series. I think it's good that throughout the course of that series of movies, they had different directors, different visions. Now, with CD Projekt Red and The Witcher, I look at the same kind of thing in gaming as well. If one developer has one, particular series for an extended period of time, there's at some point or another going to be problems. You look at, with Call of Duty, there's been issues along the way. And I mean, obviously they come out with a game every year. So obviously some games are going to be better than others. But still, when you look at it, CD Projekt Red, sometimes it's good to have a fresh set of eyes, a fresh set of, creativity that can come into a franchise. So potentially, maybe not right away, but at some point they could sell the rights, and then of course another developer could really breathe fresh life into the Witcher franchise. But like I said, guys, I think that this is a franchise that deserves to continue. A franchise that should exist amongst other action role-playing games. But let me know what you guys think and what you guys are hoping for in The Witcher 4. Let me know in the comment section below. And for more The Witcher 4 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.